Welcome back to iBosch USA Certificate in Permit Work Part 5. Now let's see the responsibilities of Worksite Safety Officer. You know, Worksite Safety Officer play a vital role in ensuring the safety and well-being of the people and the environment during work activities. Their responsibilities encompass various aspects of safety management and oversight. Now let's understand the roles and responsibilities of Worksite Safety Officer in detail. Their primary responsibility is safety oversight. That means the worksite safety officer is responsible for overseeing all safety aspects of work activities within their designated area or project. They must ensure that safety protocols, procedures, and regulations are followed to minimize risk and prevent accidents. Their second responsibility is hazard identification and risk assessment. The worksite safety officer must conduct regular inspections and risk assessment of the worksite to identify potential hazards and assess associated risk. They must collaborate with other stakeholders to implement appropriate control measures to mitigate identified risk. Their third responsibility is to provide training and education. The worksite safety officer must provide safety training and education to personnel involved in the work activities. Providing safety training and education includes training on hazard recognition, training on proper use of personal protective equipment, training on emergency procedures, and other safety related topics to promote a culture of safety awareness. Their fourth responsibility is to ensure safety compliance. That means the worksite safety officer must ensure compliance with the safety regulations, standards, and permit conditions applicable to the worksite. They must monitor work activities to ensure that safety protocols are followed and take corrective action as needed to address any safety violations or non-compliance issues. Their fifth responsibility is to investigate incident and reporting it. In the event of accidents, incidents, or near misses, the worksite safety officer must conduct thorough investigation to determine the root cause and contributing factors. They must document incidents, collective evidences, and prepare incident report for review and analysis to prevent recurrence. Their sixth responsibility is to ensure emergency preparedness and response. The worksite safety officer must develop and implement emergency response plans and procedures to address potential emergencies or incidents that may arise during work activities. They must coordinate emergency drills, they must provide training on emergency procedures, and they must ensure that appropriate emergency response resources are available. Worksite safety officer's next responsibility is safety communication. The worksite safety officer must facilitate clear communication of safety related information to personnel working on site. They must disseminate safety alerts, updates, and reminders and ensure that all workers are aware of safety hazards, procedures, and requirements. Worksite safety officers are also responsible for safety documentation and record keeping. They are supposed to maintain accurate record of safety related activities including inspections, training sessions, incident reports, and safety meetings. They must ensure that documentation is properly filed and accessible for reference and audit purposes. Finally, worksite safety officers are responsible for continuous improvement. Worksite safety officer must participate in ongoing evaluation and improvement of safety performance and practices. They must identify area for improvement. They must propose safety enhancement. They must contribute to the development of the best practices for safety management within the organization. In nutshell, worksite safety officer play a critical role in promoting a safe work environment and ensuring the well-being of people. Their proactive approach to safety management, hazard identification, training, compliance, and emergency preparedness is essential for preventing accidents and incidents in the workplace. There are different types of permits, which includes hot work permits, confined space entry permits, electrical work permits, cold work permits, excavation permits, and work at height permits. Now let's see each permit in detail. Now let's understand the hot work permit in detail. Hot work permits are required for activities that involves open flames, sparks or high temperatures such as welding, cutting, soldering or grinding. These hot work permits ensures that proper precautions are taken to prevent fires, explosions and other hazards associated with the hot work activities. Now let's discuss the hazards and controls associated with hot work. As I told you, hot work refers to any work involving operations that generate heat, sparks, or flames such as welding, cutting, soldering, brazing, or grinding. These types of activities pose significant fire, explosion, and burn hazard if not properly controlled. Now let's understand these hazards in details. First of all, when carrying out hot work activity, there is a possibility of fire and explosion. Normally, this fire and explosion can happen due to ignition of flammable materials or combustible atmosphere due to heat, spark, or flames generated during hot work activities. In order to avoid fire and explosion, we must conduct a thorough risk assessment to identify the presence of flammable materials, gases, or vapor present in the work area. The hot work area must be barricaded. Appropriate control measures must be implemented to remove or minimize presence of flammable materials such as cleaning, purging, or ventilation. Establish a hot work permit system to authorize and control hot work activities, ensuring that proper precautions are in place. Use fire resistant barriers, shields, or curtains to prevent spark or slag from igniting nearby combustible materials. In addition to this, provide fire extinguishers, fire blankets, and other firefighting equipment near the work area and ensure that workers are trained in their use. The second hazard associated with the hot work is burn hazards. This can occur due to contact with hot surfaces, molten metals, or welding, or can result in burns to exposed skin or clothing. In order to avoid burn hazards, wear appropriate personal protective equipment such as flame resistant clothing, welding gloves, safety glasses with side shields, and a welding helmet with appropriate filters. In addition to that, ensure that clothing is free of oil, grease, or other flammable substance that could ignite during hot work activities. Establish restricted access zone or barricades to prevent unauthorized personnel from entering the hot work area. In addition to this, provide heat resistant barriers or insulation to to protect adjacent surfaces or equipment from radiant heat. The third hazard associated with the hot work is fumes and gas hazards. Generation of fumes, gases or vapors containing hazardous substances such as metal fumes, welding gases during hot work operations. In order to protect from these hazardous or dangerous gases, use LEV, local exhaust ventilation system, or fume extraction equipment to capture and remove airborne contaminants at the source. Ensure that ventilation systems are properly designed, maintained, and positioned to effectively control fumes and gas exposures. Provide respiratory protection such as respirators with appropriate filters or cartridge for workers in area where adequate ventilation cannot be achieved. In order to protect from fumes and gas hazards, implement administrative controls such as limiting the duration of exposure or rotating tasks to reduce the risk of overexposure to hazardous fumes or gases. The next hazard associated with hot work is electrical hazard. People can come in contact with live electrical circuits or equipment during welding or other hot work activities that can result in electric shock or electrocution. In order to protect from electrical hazard, ensure that electrical equipment is de-energized, lock out and tag out before performing hot work or near electrical systems. Use insulated tools and equipment such as welding leads and welding machines to minimize the risk of electric shock. Provide electrical hazard awareness training to workers involved in the hot work activities. Emphasize safe work practices and procedures for working near electrical hazard. In order to protect from electrical hazard, conduct regular inspection and maintenance of electrical system to identify and address potential hazards before they pose risk to workers. By implementing these hazard controls, organizations can effectively mitigate the risk associated with the hot work activities and ensure the safety of workers and the workplace.